remove the seat, you got 4, they're either nuts or bolts depending on the location. And of course Chevy couldn't use normal ones, they got these weird star pattern ones, so you got to get a special tool to remove them. But there's basically one there, there's one underneath that plastic cap, and then there's 2 in the rear. So you can see how that connects. I have the seat all the way back, and then so both of the front ones are E20 nuts. You probably will need a deeper E20 socket to get the one closest to the door. I was able to get it out, but they really don't want you to be able to get to it unless you have the exact tool. This is the back side. You've got a bolt there, and underneath that plastic is another bolt. Plastic very loosely attached, as you can see, and there's the bolt there. Alright, so the rear ones are E16 size, and they're bolts, not nuts. You remove the bolts and kind of push up on the seat, and you'll find the electrical connectors under there. Just disconnect them, and then the seat will be real easy to remove. So there's the disconnected electrical connectors that went onto there, and now it's just a matter of lifting the seat out of the car. Do it carefully, don't hurt your back. If you're not strong enough to lift the seat by yourself, then obviously get a helper. Main thing when you're removing the seat, just take your time and be very careful, because these edges are sharp and you will scratch your paint if you're not careful. With the seat out, I usually like to vacuum. Not very often that you're able to have this easy of access to vacuum. Once I've vacuumed it, we're going to run the wire for the backup camera. It's actually going to drop down, run underneath the carpet over to here. You've seen some of my other videos, you know, when in doubt, I like to thread things back where they came from so they don't get lost and they don't get mixed up. So you see I've just very loosely threaded that, and that back on. That way I know where they're at. They won't get vacuumed up, they won't get lost. So we need to remove this trim piece. And it just pops straight up. You'll see it's got 4 little connectors on it. That piece out, we have access to get underneath the carpet here to run a fish stick or whatever we're going to do to pull the wire through. What I'm doing, I'm taking the wires there and going to run them down through there underneath the carpet, across over to here, and then back to the back of the truck. Okay, it started pouring rain, so the fishing expedition here is kind of slowed, almost stalled. Basically the wires are underneath there, and it kind of runs along here, and it comes out where this bracket is. You can kind of see a little bit of the wire there. You want to make sure the wire doesn't get underneath the bracket or it could get severed. Basically, I use either one of those little, I don't know what you call it, grabby things, or a fish stick. That there is a fish stick. For this job, I needed something smaller, so I used that. But basically, I ran that up under this bracket, and it came out underneath here. And then I just grabbed the wire, pulled it down. So then the wire was just hanging out here. And then I slid the stick under the carpet there, had it come out at the bracket here, grabbed the end of the wire, and pulled it back through. So that's basically fishing. It's just a monotonous process trying to find where you need to pull wires through to best accomplish what you're wanting to do. Trying to keep wires where they won't get broken and where they're not super visible. When the seat's back in, you really won't see this wire here. The only time you see it is when the seat's out. But like I said, you want to make sure that this bracket doesn't cut it. So once it stops raining, I will continue the fishing process over here. Basically getting that wire to start heading toward the back where it's going to mate up with the backup camera. Got the wire now to the back seat. The trim is just like in the front, except there are just 3 clips. Just pull straight up from there. What I did, because I'm a little bit fearful that this cable is going to be a really tight fit as far as the length, instead of running it straight across from there to there and then down, I went ahead and ran it from there, and then it kind of goes in a straight line to here and comes out here. And really all you got to do, once you've gotten it out of that part there, it's just kind of pulling up on the carpet and running a fish stick or something similar, and by the time you've got it underneath this portion right in here, it's super easy. Then there's really nothing in the way to get it over to here. So the next trick will be, and I've done this before, so it's just a matter of remembering how to do it, but do I need to remove any more trim to get it start heading toward the back of the truck? Installing the seat is the reverse of the removal process. I've already done the heavy lifting. That's why I'm out of breath. Pick it up, like I said, carefully guide it back into the car so you don't scratch anything. These end pieces can be notorious for catching on things if you're not really careful. Basically line it up as you're putting it back in, so the front where there's the post coming up, line that up so that the holes go in there, and then the back has just one post coming out to line up, and then you just put the bolts back in. But before you start bolting it in, you need to reconnect the electrical, which that just clips on there, and then the other piece also just clips on there, and it has a little lock tab on there. So it's a two-hand job, so I put the camera down. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. So normally those will snap together and you'll hear a click. I'm not hearing that on either one of these. The yellow one looks like it's maybe just grounds or something. It's got a metal clip on the bottom that slides over this metal bracket here. Doesn't actually connect to anything. I don't know what it's looking for or what it's doing. This one's obviously your power seat. So I'm just going to start hand threading these bolts in and then torque them down. I'm just going to torque those down until they're tight, and then we'll replace the plastic caps, slide the seat all the way back, and replace the nuts in the front. Alright, the bolts are torqued down. This plastic cap appears to be a either or. There doesn't appear to be a front or back to it, and it just fits right over that and clicks down onto it. And then the side one here, you see it has a spot to go over and under, so it goes like that. So if you put your seat in right, it will now slide back. Which exposes the bolts in the front and allows you to put the nuts on them and torque those down. They're not super easy to get to, particularly the one on the closest to the door. So I'm going to use the needle nose pliers to kind of line it up, and I'll do that off camera. Once I've got it started to thread, then I'll use the wrench to torque it down. So I've got it started finger tight, and then like I said, I'll just use the wrench to finish torquing it in. And I'll tell you, this is the only place I've ever run across where I would need a deep E20. So I have been reluctant to buy one because I don't take the seat up very often, but I may have to invest in one if I'm going to be doing a lot more handy dad videos. So I pulled the wire up under that plastic trim. That was real easy. And then to pass it through to the back, I'm going to drill a hole there in that metal. First I'm going to drill a small pilot hole, then I've got to drill a hole big enough for RCA jack to fit through. So it's going to be a pretty big hole. The nice thing is that hole won't be visible because there's rubber trim there. I'll go back up and cover that. That trim just peels right off and peels right back on. So I'm going to do that off camera. There's no point in you watching me drill. I drilled a 1/2 inch hole and slid a grommet over the wire. And while I was drilling the hole, you see I nicked another wire I had through there, so I'm going to have to fix that. But I think the hard part's done now. Once I get that wire to the back of the truck, it fishes straight back to where it needs to go, and the grommet will keep it safe, and I'll fix that wire there that I cut. Basically I'll solder an extra little strip on there, and that'll fit through that hole there, and all will be well.